The Square Ball Podcast.
Levi Solicitors bring you the podcast, and there's 10% off your legal fees at levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. Dan, Michael and Rob here. Doing heroes and villains now then, in part 3 of the show. First, the Ken Bates Villain of the Week award, and I imagine this one could go on for a while if we're not careful. I mean, loads of nominations. We open this up, by the way, we should say, to the TSB Plus subscribers who give us their feedback on what's happened in the last 7 days, and there's been quite a lot of bloodletting with this one.
I mean, the general theme is pretty much everything involved connected to Leeds United.
Let's get in on Moscow first of all, because he's not here. So let's chuck him under the bus. As we mentioned at the start of propaganda, he has been referred to HR for performance review, given his silence for the first 6 to 7 minutes of the match ball against Southampton.
Sat on his phone like a ungrateful teenager being taken out for a meal.
And Joe asks where was his positivity, which is right.
I feel like he had a bit, but I think he knew it wasn't. He knew now's not the time.
The majority of us in here were sad and wanted to be reminded of how sad we were. Right, that's enough of him. So let's get the whole club has kind of been, the whole team, the whole club has been singled out by a number of people, including Aidan, Phil, Anthony, Craig, Ryan, Sazzy, and then some of the individuals. Should we pick them out? Should we go on the attack against Marcelo Bielsa? Should we go on the attack against Rodrigo? How about Rafinha? How about Tyler Roberts? How about the midfield? How about Radrizzani? How about, who's the Dallas swapper?
The Dallas swapper is, yes, that's nominated by Philip, saying whoever's swapped him for a replica without the batteries in.
And Tite as well for playing Rafinha in all 3 Brazil games. Should have left him out against Uruguay, shouldn't he? Never mind what your nation's hopes are.
They've already qualified. Why bother? Why do this to us? I mean, the Brazil did get a nomination as well, just for sending him back. So sending him back late, like a newly divorced dad for getting the custody arrangements.
Nice of Watford to get a nomination as well for making us look like Barcelona circa 2013 from Steve.
Yeah, they lift your expectations and then they dash them again. What did Radrizzani get the nomination for? It was Carl. For the Forshaw tweet, still echoing down the weeks, isn't it? That one. 3 at the back, got picked out by Paul. Again, we lose our shape when we're playing this formation. Yeah, agree. Don't like it.
Rodrigo did get quite a weight of nominations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people nominating him there.
Words, sinking feeling, the ever cheery sinking feeling, suggests he was an absolute waste of money, to quote those words.
And Hilton Crowther there, not his real name, I imagined. Did dub him Rodrigo Morrison.
Like Steve Morrison.
Yeah, always puts a shift in, which is very, very harsh, given what we saw from Steve Morrison. But I guess, is there a parallel there? It's kind of a top earner.
I mean, Jack's not happy here. Look at this. What a fucking waste of time, money, and keeping Joffrey on the bench for 70 odd minutes too long, or whatever it was. And Riley suggesting it's getting harder to stand by him week by week, like an errant boyfriend who keeps misbehaving.
I think it's one of the, to go back to the Morrison comparison, I get the feeling with Rodrigo, he seems like a nice guy, and so it's harder to hate him. Whereas Steve Morrison, you just looked at his Millwall-y face and you just thought, oh God, even the sight of him sort of drained me. Whereas Rodrigo, I think, looks like a nice chap.
The content seemed to go both ways with Morrison. It felt like he hated us as much as we hated him. I don't think Rodrigo's reached that point just yet, although if he gets as many nominations going forward, maybe that will change.
I think that's the thing. We're in a kind of weird, I don't know, no man's land of desperately wanting them all to succeed as a kind of a carryover from the promotion, in that we all feel very emotionally invested in this, and hugely so in Bielsa. And yet we're now being forced to confront their shortcomings and the things that they're not doing so well.
I think with Rodrigo, it's starting to feel a little bit like it's got £5 million return to his former club at the end of the season written all over it, because people will be like, well, I suppose we'll have him back. We'll see what you've done to him. I don't know. It needs to click pretty soon, doesn't it? Because I know he had a broken up season because of injuries last year, and he's been all right at points this season. It's just not, when you sign a Spanish international for nearly 30 million quid, you do sort of expect him to be better than this.
Well, that's the thing, is that you expect, at the price we paid and the age that he was, that you're getting a player at his absolute peak, and you're thinking, well, where is that that peak, and we just haven't seen it yet, have we? It's just not quite working. I don't know if it's the demands of the Premier League or the tactical system or whatever. He just doesn't seem to have the engine, does he? I don't know.
I mean, speaking of people who are at the peak, Tyler Roberts. Let's go to him. Kit says he just isn't intelligent enough to be a Premier League footballer. And also nominates him because it's great seeing Moscow's face when Tyler is mentioned. So sadly, you're not gonna get that. And Costa Blanca, we can't now separate Tyler Roberts and Moscow. He says Tyler Roberts for continuing to exist, which is very harsh, and Moscow for defending him.
In fairness to Moscow, he does say like he is a limited footballer, but it's unfair for singling him out as the one who deserves flack. And there's truth in that. It's just that he never seems to quite do the good things. He's
incredibly inoffensive, isn't he? But I guess that's part of the problem as well. It's just like, well, what are you? I don't really know.
It's like you look at the midfield, like Dallas and Click did nothing, but it seemed completely incapable, and maybe have done several times this season already. And you could argue Tyler Roberts has actually probably done more in the last couple of games to be positive, because he does have positive moments, but then completely undoes it by being ponderous on the ball and turning great big circles, and you just you're willing him to think quicker, and I think that's where the difference between the Premier League and the Championship is. It's in speed of thought.
He's another one where he just doesn't have the credit in the bank, does he, to kind of coast on poorer performances. Like there was those 2 goals at Hull where everyone was like, yes, this is it, this is our new striker. And then
we've never had it, have we?
And then it just never happened again. I think that might be actually sort of the time we'll look back on with the biggest regret with Roberts, is that the Championship run-in when there was a chance there for him to really cement his place in the team because Pablo was coming off the bench, but he just didn't do anything, and then we had to bring Pablo on at half-time every game. And you think, well, that's where he could have built up some credit, and we might have been a bit more lenient to him then.
Get a grown-up on to do the job instead.
And I think there's probably further fuel poured onto the fire by the new contract that he got in the summer, when a lot of people were saying, well, now's the time to cut him loose, really. And I don't know, it's one of those sliding doors things, isn't it? It's like, if you wanted to then get rid of him now, what's the contract look like? How does that impact getting rid of him in future? Not advocating that we should, and certainly not release him now, because we're pretty threadbare as it is in the squad, but you know what I mean? It's like there's going to be people pointing to that and saying we made a mistake there. I don't know. Rafinha, again, feels like a bit of an outrider with this one, but Dan Harding, you remember him?
I do.
Dan has nominated Rafinha for being too good, for getting called up, missing the game. Never had this problem with Adrian, correct. And he also picks out Phil Hay for bringing out the Bielsa book, because it's fallen apart since he released it. And he describes Phil as a selfish twat.
That's perfectly fair.
Ian Danter, TalkSport. What's he done?
He covers Leeds. This is from Daniel Barthorpe. Says covers Leeds all the fucking time and has done since the Championship days, yet still hasn't twigged about how Leeds play against 2 up front. This is something that often comes out when we're on TV and stuff. People are going, oh, and so will play in midfield.
Strout's going to be in the holding right now.
No, won't be. I'll say, Bielsa changed his tactics today as if it was like the first time he'd ever done it, and he's like, no, this is every time he does this.
The other thing that gets me about this is, and I don't expect all commentators and analysts and whatever to have the same level of knowledge of tactics and whatever that we do,
of course,
as people who see it every week. I meant, and know that
you did describe Dallas as playing in midfield a minute ago, and he was at fullback on the weekend.
Well, you know what I mean. In that general area.
But in fairness,
so what I'm saying is, why don't these people see what's happening in front of them and see 3 at the back, and then see 3 sat in front of them? They don't, do they? Blind to the truth. Speaking of 3 at the back, yeah, Paul picked it out. Who else have we got? That covers it, doesn't it? Apart from international breaks and FIFA, yeah, that's one of Phil's big bugbears. Actually, he mentions it a fair bit on the Phil Hay show, saying that they're trying to squeeze too much in. Like 3 games in a window is too much. I mean, because they've got to obviously make up for lost time with COVID and all that, I guess, haven't they?
Bielsa was right. Just play less games. There's no need for this much football. You can't even watch it all. There's too much on.
And Hassan Huttel's been singled out for his demeanour.
It was for his stupid fucking waistcoat. That's what it was described as. What's happened to him? Because he used to be a tracksuit man, didn't he?
Don't know.
Got ideas above his station, and now he's looking for that bigger job.
Maybe he's recently divorced and he's started to put the effort back in.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you've got.
It was sort of the pep look, wasn't it? Because he had the trainers with the trousers as well. But that's not it, mate.
No. Go on then. So, if you had to pick one from all those, who's your Ken Bates villain of the week?
Just give it to Moscow because he's not here. Well, normally he'd argue against it, wouldn't he? But
Can't defend himself.
can't do it, can he? And I think we should just pick on people who, when we see the opportunity.
I like lots of Leeds United players, so I don't want it to go to them.
And you don't like Moscow, which is fine. We could just award it to Leeds United for as a collective responsibility.
They can share it, I guess, can't they?
Yeah.
Have it for a day each or something.
Yeah.
Seems fair.
Like when you get is it a rabbit you share from school, or is it a teddy bear these days? I can't remember.
Yeah, there was definitely a teddy when my kids were younger. There's not been an animal.
A teddy is easier to look after than a rabbit.
That is true.
Or a guinea pig.
Although it was annoying because you had to part of the process, you had to fill out a bloody diary of what it had been doing.
Yeah.
So then you have to do something
photographs.
Yeah, then you have to do something wholesome with the kids. You can't just say, "Oh, the bear sat and watched Paw Patrol back to back
for 10 hours while Daddy drank in a corner."
watched 8 hours of Paw Patrol and had fish fingers for tea.
Yeah.
Don't contact social services. My kids are well looked after, I promise.
Now they're in a new home. Right, so we're just going to give it to Leeds United then, are we?
Yeah,
that's fair enough.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for nothing, swines. Right, the Gitano Baradi Hero of the Week. Let's pick out some positives if we can. Our sponsors of the podcast, Levi's, have been picked out by Aidan. He got his discount off his fees. Great set of lads. I mean, I know that's a dreadful commercial
It did genuinely come in as feedback. I mean, admittedly in a fairly...
fallow week.
Fallow week, yes.
I mean, and do know that this stuff does genuinely help us. So thanks to Levi's for the support and also for you using them as well. So
if we're covering off what a fallow week it has been, although isn't it fallow? Don't you leave something fallow on purpose? Fallow field. I think that's like crop rotation stuff. We're getting into farming. We don't need to.
Come on, tell me you don't know about that as well.
I feel like that's
you do a fallow field. Let's look up.
I think because you have crops in it, and then I think you leave it fallow on purpose. Whereas I don't feel like we lost this week on purpose. Anyway, William Shatner's been nominated for going to space at age 90, so that's good.
Yeah, fallow is a farming technique in which arable land is left without sowing for one or more vegetative cycles. The goal of the fallowing is to allow the land to ... but I think you can,
Exactly. So unless we were saying we basically had a nice rest against Southampton and we're going to be all back on it for Wolves.
Or maybe we should grow vegetables on the pitch at Ellen Road.
Possibly. It's got good drainage now, so...
Yeah, it'd be excellent. Get those growing lights on it.
Should we give it to William Shatner?
He's my favourite, I think.
Sorry, what's he done? Sorry, I wasn't listening. I was looking up.
He went to space.
Right.
I mean, not really space. He went quite high up. It's higher than I've been, anyway. He looked a bit like Chris Wilder as well in his little jumpsuit that he had on. So that was nice.
A fallow period of time is one in which very little happens.
Okay.
Yeah, not much activity, which is true.
Jamie Shackleton got a few nominations. Paul, Luke and Joe, just saying, did all right, basically. I thought that Shackleton was all right, but a couple of people on Twitter were saying no, he was terrible.
I thought he was the best of a bad bunch. That's not to suggest that he was good objectively, just that he wasn't maybe as bad as the rest.
Yeah, I did, because I didn't go back to the people with this because I am petty enough. I think I just got distracted probably, but I did look up some stats that prove he was kind of all right.
Uh-huh.
Like he did tackle more than most people and did make more forward runs than most people and didn't give the ball away quite as much as most people.
I think he maybe had the fewest moments of
Yeah. Even though there still were some, I thought overall he actually did seem to be trying to push us forward in a way that no one else particularly was.
Right,
So.
I've completely lost where we are on the sheet because I was thinking about farming. So who else are we nominating?
I mean, Joe Gellart looks like a little rosy-cheeked farm boy, doesn't he?
He does. You can imagine him scrumping apples, couldn't you?
Yeah. Or pulling a plough, maybe.
Yeah. Isn't that the job of animals? Or
He's from Liverpool. Maybe he's used to that. I don't know. Yeah. Some people have nominated him. I mean, Costa Blanca says for obvious reasons, but I mean, he didn't do much, did he?
No, it was just nice to see him.
Just nice to see him, I suppose.
Yeah. And Lynn was pleased, his mum. She was delighted, so it was nice to bring joy to the life of his mother, which is good. That's a good thing. Bielsa gets nominations. He got nominated for villainy. What's he been nominated for as a hero? Because he would tell you that he was responsible for the team that was put out on Saturday, and therefore its defeat.
I mean, Kit says that if if Bielsa wasn't in charge, he'd be worrying about relegation. But he is, so I'm not. But I think that's not eased your fears, has it, Michael?
I would rather keep Bielsa, it is worth saying. Like, if we were to change manager now, I think our chances of staying up diminish. So let's just keep him.
Well, it's much like the Newcastle quandary, though, isn't it? Like, who would you put in? And I mean, Frank's available.
Oh, Steve Bruce will be available soon. Maybe we're waiting for Bruce. So we can
waiting for the right guy to read.
So we can sack Bielsa. Get rid of that guy once and for all.
God, perish the thought. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean,
which actually reminds me, we should be grateful for what we do have, as difficult as it's been this week.
And we have had difficult periods under Bielsa, and we have come through them.
Mm-hmm.
So
can we come through this one soon, please?
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like the
evidence suggests we will.
We had the bit in the Championship, didn't we, where we were throwing it all away, and we'd lost to Forest, and everything was going wrong, and Luke Ayling was going to cry. And then from that point on, we basically just pissed the league after that point. So more of that.
Yep, Rafinha got nominated. Anthony said he didn't put a foot wrong in the Southampton game, on top of his Brazilian performances, which is a fair point. Yeah, although, as we found out in the other half of this, that his journey to Brazil has cost us horrifically.
I mean, Dan James got some nominations. The only player who seems to really give a shit and chase everything. And also us, for not shoving Moscow's phone down his throat.
Have we done Tyler Roberts' hero nomination yet? Roger feels like Roger is swimming against the tide here somewhat, but let's do it. Let's be fair. So he did some nice skill touches and seemed to be the only one interested.
There's a lot of sympathy nominations in here. It feels like Rodrigo's got one from Mike from Warwick because he wants him to have a run up front, but we're not exactly helping him, which is one way of looking at it.
Talking about
the players, maybe, I don't know.
Oh, right, okay.
Maybe he's not helping himself.
Yeah, away fans is the obvious one here. James and Craig both picked out the away fans for actually making that journey. Absolutely true. And for singing throughout. That is one good thing about being in the away end. Even when it's a terrible game and it's got away from you. And you just know, don't you, there are times when actually the football's a distraction from your day out. That is one good thing about being in the away end. Whereas watching it on telly, that's another thing about talking about like the hyper-realism of the weekend. The Premier League, I think, it's designed to make you miserable, isn't it? It's just a TV product, and when you consume it as a TV product, it can make you miserable. Whereas when you're in there, that's the only time it feels real and authentic to me, because you can dispense with all the bullshit and the hype and the commentators and the analysts and all the hot takes on Twitter and all that. It's just you and the football team and a shared collective experience. So even if it's shit, you can still have a good time because you're there with your mates.
And you can yell at them that they're shit as well. Which is the other thing you can't do. Well, you can do it. We've seen propaganda every week is just people yelling at a telly, isn't it? But yeah, it's better to do it in person, I think. Take all your get off technology and go shout at people in real life. That's what I say.
Do it in the street.
That's healthy.
Right, go on then. Who else have we got that we've not covered off? And I'm leaning on you for this because again I got distracted by farming, so I've forgotten who we've done.
I mean, Forshaw gets a nomination from Peter Andre from Sydney. I'm assuming it's Peter Andre. It wasn't a great appearance, but it'd be churlish not to feel happy for him retaking the field in a league match after 2 years out.
This was lost in the general dumpster fire of the match.
Well, yeah.
Fair point. But he was part of the dumpster fire, wasn't he? That's the problem.
There's a nice positive nomination from Carl for the youngsters. They just aren't ready yet, and they look way off Premier League level at the minute. So that's a nice optimistic note. So they've made our first teamers look better.
That'll really lift your spirits, lads. Is that everyone? Steve Bruce got a nomination.
Steve Bruce did get a nomination for coaching Newcastle like they were protecting an aggregate lead instead of throwing caution to the wind and coaching for his life, thus keeping us out of the bottom three.
Yes. Please hang on in there, Steve. You're doing God's work at the minute. Is that it then?
Yeah.
Right. Hero.
William Shatner?
Let's give it to Shatner.
What did he do again? He
went into space. Went to space.
I mean, has that brought joy to us as Leeds fans over the last week? It feels very, very left field.
I mean, who else are we going to give it to?
I can't give it to Rafinha, even though he's got quite a lot of nominations, because he caused part of this by being good and going to Brazil.
Yeah, I suppose the difficulty there is it's like when you saw Fabian Delph come through, and you were like, "Oh, we're probably not going to get to keep him." But then you get you need a balance, don't you? You can be quite good, but not like Jack Harrison. We're probably going to get to keep him. Jack Harrison's like the Alex Mowat of this team, where you'd be like, "Well,
Alex Mowat, who we kept."
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But we got rid of him when we chose. I mean, he wasn't taken from us
Yes.
in the same way. It was like, well, we'll keep him as long as we want him.
Some people suggesting he should come back. I'm sure he'd thrive under the demands of Bielsa.
He's a midfielder. I actually would take him right now.
Really?
Yep. I don't care if he can only play 20 minutes. He can run his little Doncaster heart out for 20 minutes until it fails on him.
Shatner then, is it? Captain Kirk.
I can't say any of the others have brought me any joy, and Shatner's nomination here did make me smile.
Did it?
I mean, it was better than the football, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. All right, well done, Shatner. What a hero you are. We'll now find out he's done something terrible. The news will break, won't it, after we've recorded this? Well, that wraps it up, I guess, for this week. Christ, please can next week be happier and just give us something to cling on to. It's awful when there's nothing to cling on to, isn't it?
We've lost loads of games last season, and we were never like this, were we? I don't quite know what's gone wrong. I'm sorry, everyone. Thing is, if we're not if we're positive, a lot of people say we're not negative enough, and if we're negative, a lot of people say we're not being positive enough.
Maybe we should just shut it all down. The whole silly enterprise. That's Michael damaging the things we've bought in here,
which are all for sale now, by the way, if you're interested.
Look, we've done the bloodletting now. We've done the upset. We've done the crying, the wailing, the gnashing of teeth. It ends in this podcast. Never again this season will we be sad or upset at what Leeds United do ever. Is that agreed?
No.
See
you Saturday, one way or another.
Yeah, match ball on Saturday. We will reconvene for that. And if you do want some light relief, actually, check out, and you're a subscriber, check out the Extra Ball Q&A, because there's some fun stuff on that, actually.
Yeah,
particularly,
it's not really about football.
Exactly, which is why it's good. So go check out that if you want to subscribe as well. The squareball.net/plus to have a look at TSB Plus, then our all-in-one sub package where you can support this misery and hopefully make us smile again in future weeks. Till next time. Till next time. We'll see you in a bit.
The Square Ball Podcast.